On the morning of November 1st, 1987, the desert town of Soledad woke to a miracle that would become a curse. The air still smelled of burnt copal and sugar skulls from the Dia de los Muertos celebrations the night before, the paper marigold petals now brittle underfoot. 12-year-old Daniel Reyes, known for his quiet ways and habit of staring too long at the horizon, stood barefoot on the steps of the whitewashed church. His mother would later swear she saw him hesitate, not in fear but in recognition, as if answering a call only he could hear. Then he lifted his foot and stepped onto nothing. Witnesses described it as walking up a staircase only he could see, his body tilting at impossible angles as he ascended. The town baker crossed himself so violently he spilled his pan de muerto. Old man Ruiz dropped his flask of mezcal, the liquor spreading across the dust like a sacrifice. Daniel climbed higher, his outline blurring in the desert haze, until he paused, hovering at the height of the church bell tower, and spoke his last words. "It's so much bigger up here." Then he was gone. The silence that followed was thicker than the heat. A single huarache remained on the steps, the leather still warm. By unspoken agreement, the town folded the incident into itself like a secret. The priest, Father Mateo's predecessor, declared it a private miracle. The sheriff wrote "runaway" in his ledger. Daniel's mother, Rosa, kept setting his place at the table for 30 years, the tortillas going stiff and cold. But the desert remembers what people choose to forget. The horror lives in the ordinariness of the moment. There are no portals, no lightning strikes, just a boy stepping into empty air as casually as climbing a tree. The witnesses' reactions ground it in reality. The spilled alcohol, the half-made sign of the cross, the way trauma manifests in small physical details. The abandoned shoe becomes a relic, both proof and denial of what happened. This isn't a UFO abduction or religious rapture. It's something far stranger. The invisible staircase suggests an architecture to the phenomenon, as if the sky has always contained these hidden steps, and Daniel was simply the first to notice. His final words imply revelation, not terror. And the town's collective silence plants the seeds for the next disappearance, because in Soledad, the sky doesn't just take, it returns. The scene lingers like a heat mirage, making you question, did Daniel ascend, or was he pulled? Why do all the vanished leave one shoe behind? And worst of all, why do some in Soledad seem to be waiting for their turn? By the time the sleepwalking children begin their march toward the same spot decades later, you realize this wasn't an ending. It was an invitation. 30 years to the day after Daniel Reyes walked into the sky, Father Mateo finds the boy's shoe on the church steps. Not a replica, not a trick of the light. The same worn huarache, its stitching still frayed from where Daniel had kicked rocks along Calle Morelos, its sole still caked with the red dust of that November morning. It sits precisely where it was left, as if no time has passed, except the leather is damp, beaded with condensation like something that has just returned from somewhere cold. The priest's breath catches. He knows this shoe. He was there when it fell. Across town, Rosa Reyes drops a clay platter of enchiladas at the exact moment Mateo's fingers brush the shoe. The dish shatters on the tiles of her kitchen, but she doesn't move to clean it. She stands frozen, one hand pressed to her chest, because after 3 decades of waiting, she suddenly feels it, the shift in the air, the way dogs howl before an earthquake. Her son's place at the table is no longer empty. That night, the sleepwalking begins. Children rise from their beds in unison, drawn like iron filings to the churchyard. Their parents clutch at them, shake them, scream their names. But the children's eyes remain fixed on some point beyond the stars, their bare feet padding silently over gravel that should cut their skin. They murmur the same phrase in voices not quite their own. He's holding the door open. By dawn, 5 are missing. Only their left shoes remain, arranged in a perfect semicircle around the church steps. The shoes are warm to the touch. And on the horizon, just above the ridge where Daniel vanished, the first weather balloons from the Alamogordo research base begin to disappear, each one vanishing at exactly 12,000 feet. The horror here is in the domesticity of the supernatural. The shoe isn't hurled back dramatically. It simply reappears where it always was, as if correcting a cosmic oversight. The parallel reactions of Matteo and Rosa, one touching the physical proof, the other feeling it in her bones, show how trauma echoes across a community. The sleepwalking children evoke real-world epidemics of collective hysteria, but with a chilling precision. Their synchronized movements suggest something is puppeteering them. The phrase, holding the door open, implies Daniel is no longer just a victim, but an active participant in the phenomenon. And the vanishing weather balloons at 12,000 feet, that's the masterstroke. It turns the sky into a measured laboratory, proving this isn't magic. It's a process, with rules and thresholds. The children aren't being stolen, they're being collected. By the time Vera Cruz arrives to investigate, the town is already partitioning itself into those who will chain their children to bed frames and those who will polish their shoes for the next ascent. Because in Soledad, the sky doesn't just give back what it took, it comes asking for more. The desert sun hangs heavy over Soledad when Vera Cruz steps off the bus, her notebook already warping in the heat. She came for the story of a missing boy, one strange footnote in a decades-old mystery, but the town greets her with the quiet tension of a held breath. The air smells of creosote and something sharper underneath, like ozone after a lightning strike. Father Matteo meets her at the cantina, his collar frayed and his hands stained with candle wax. He slides a shoebox across the table without a word. Inside, Daniel's huarache rests on a bed of salt, the leather still supple as if no time has passed. Vera reaches to touch it, then stops. The shoe is humming. A vibration so faint it's less a sound than a prickle along the skin, the way the earth trembles before a storm. The priest's eyes are hollow when he tells her, "It started singing yesterday." Their first stop is the Reyes house. Rosa sits in perpetual dusk behind drawn curtains, the table still set for 2. Vera notices the details, the way the tortillas on Daniel's plate never fully harden, how the glass of horchata sweats more than the humidity warrants. When Rosa lifts the boy's photograph from the mantel, Vera expects grief. Instead, the woman's fingers trace the frame with something like anticipation. "You'll see," she murmurs. "The pictures changed first, and they have." In every image Vera examines, school portraits, candid snapshots, even the faded mural outside the pharmacy, Daniel's face has been replaced by a silhouette. Not blank space, but an active absence, a shape that drinks the light around it. The more Vera stares, the more she swears the shadows in the photos are ever so slightly wrong. Telephone wires dipping where no wires exist, rooftops angled for a town that isn't Soledad. Old man Ruiz finds them at the churchyard, his breath reeking of anise and fear. He speaks around a mouthful of broken teeth about 1929, about the winter half the schoolhouse emptied overnight. Same month, same damn moon phase. He spits. When Vera checks the records later, the deaths are all listed as influenza, convenient for a town that buried their children without coffins. But it's the bell tower that seals the truth. Scaling the rusted ladder at midnight, Vera's flashlight catches the inscription inside the bronze bell. The letters are worn but unmistakable, the patina of centuries in their grooves. As Vera runs her fingers over them, the bell gives a single silent vibration, the same frequency as the shoe. Outside, the first of the weather balloons vanishes from radar at precisely 12,000 feet. The genius lies in the slow unraveling of reality through mundane details. The humming shoe and sweating glass of horchata suggest Daniel isn't gone. He's leaking back, his presence warping the ordinary. Vera's journalistic skepticism crumbles not with a dramatic reveal, but through the quiet horror of photographs that edit themselves, of historical records too neatly aligned. The 1843 engraving is the turning point, proof that whatever takes Soledad's children operates on a timeline beyond human comprehension. And the silent bell's vibration mirrors the shoe's hum, creating a sensory through line that Vera and the audience can feel but not explain. By the time the weather balloons disappear, we understand. The investigation isn't about finding answers. It's about realizing some questions should never be asked aloud. The children of Soledad rise in perfect unison. It begins with a whisper, not through the town but beneath it, a vibration in the floorboards that makes the dogs whine and the candles gutter out. Doors creak open on their own. Screen doors flap like moth wings in the still night air, and then they come, barefoot and blank-eyed, moving with the eerie synchronicity of a single mind pulling their strings. Parents wake to empty beds still warm with the impression of small bodies. They spill into the streets in nightgowns and boots, their flashlights cutting jagged paths through the dark. But the children are already gone, their trail marked only by bare footprints in the dust. Not scattered, as if running, but single file, each step placed precisely where the child before had stepped. At the churchyard, Father Mateo finds them. They stand in a perfect circle around the steps where Daniel vanished, their heads tilted back, their mouths slightly open as if drinking starlight. Their nightclothes ripple in a wind that doesn't touch the trees. When Mateo grabs the nearest child, little Lucia Peña, only 7, her skin is cold as marble, her pulse fluttering like a trapped bird. She doesn't fight, doesn't blink, just keeps whispering the same phrase on a loop. He's holding the door open. Then the humming starts. It comes from the ground, from the air, from the very bones of the church. The children's bare feet leave the earth in unison, rising as if ascending invisible stairs. A mother screams and leaps to pull her son down, but the moment her fingers brush his ankle, she freezes. Her eyes go wide. "Oh God," she breathes. "There are steps, real steps." By dawn, 5 children are gone. Only their left shoes remain, arranged in a crescent on the church steps. When Vera lifts one, the leather is damp with dew, or perhaps, she thinks with a chill, with the cold sweat of whatever space between spaces they've crossed into. Down the road, old man Ruiz spits into the dust and mutters about 1929, about the winter the schoolhouse emptied overnight. But the real horror comes at noon, when the missing children's toys begin to crumble. Action figures, dolls, a prized baseball mitt, all reduced to fine white salt by the time the sun reaches its zenith. As Vera sifts the granules through her fingers, the church bell tolls once on its own, the sound too deep for the hour. And high above Soledad, the first weather balloon from the Alamogordo research base vanishes from radar. The terror here lies in the mechanics of the supernatural. This isn't random possession. It's a ritual, precise and repeatable. The single-file footprints suggest an invisible path. The children's synchronicity implies they're not being taken, but following. And the mother's realization that there are actual tactile steps in the air shifts the horror from fantasy to something measurable, something that could theoretically be mapped. The salt transformation is particularly brilliant, a biblical echo, Lot's wife, made modern, implying the children have been rendered into something purer, or perhaps preserved. And the recurring 12,000-foot threshold ties the phenomenon to hard science, making it more unsettling than any ghost story. By the time the bell tolls, we understand. This isn't happening to Soledad. Soledad was built for this. The desert does not give up its secrets easily. Vera Cruz learns this as she kneels in the dust of the Soledad church basement, her fingers tracing the edge of a massive buried mirror. The glass is ancient, older than the town, older than the Spanish missions, older than anything should be in this sun-bleached corner of New Mexico. It stretches 30 feet across, its surface fogged with age, its frame carved with symbols that make her eyes water to look at. Father Mateo holds the lantern higher. The light does not reflect. They built the church over it, he whispers, not to honor God, to keep it buried. The pieces come together like a nightmare taking shape. The disappearances happen every 58 years. Exactly 58, like clockwork. A celestial alignment no one noticed until Vera lays the records side by side. The children taken are always left-handed, a fact hidden in census data, in the way their shoes are always the left ones left behind. The weather balloons vanish at 12,000 feet because that's where the mirror's reflection begins. Old man Ruiz, drunk on sacramental wine, fills in the rest. It ain't the sky they're walking into, he slurs. It's the mirror. The damn thing looks up instead of down. Lets them look back. Then Rosa Reyes arrives with Daniel's last notebook. The pages are filled with sketches of a city, not a child's crude drawings, but architectural blueprints of impossible spires and inverted towers. The same city Vera realizes she's been seeing in the shadows of the altered photographs. The same city whose silhouette appears for one chilling frame in the Alamogordo balloon footage before the camera cuts out. He tried to warn us, Rosa says, pointing to the last entry. There, in shaky script, Daniel had written, "They don't want us. They want left, the part that dreams." As Vera stares at the words, the mirror beneath them sighs, a sound like 1,000 pages turning at once. Above their heads, the church bell begins to ring on its own, and outside, every left shoe in Soledad starts to vibrate. The genius lies in the scientific horror of the mirror. This isn't magic, it's a device, something that twists physics to create a doorway for beings who see our world as a reflection to be stepped into. The 58-year cycle suggests orbital mechanics, a cosmic alignment that powers the phenomenon like a battery. The left-handedness detail is chilling, not just a random trait, but proof that whatever takes the children is harvesting something specific, some quantum quality of the brain tied to creativity and dreams. Daniel's sketches confirm he didn't vanish. He crossed over, and what he saw there was too vast for a child's mind to hold. And the mirror's sigh? That's the sound of it waking up. The horror isn't just that children are being taken, it's that they were bred for this. The air in Soledad hums like a plucked guitar string on the night the children climb again. Vera Cruz feels it in her teeth first. That same vibration from the shoe, the bell, the buried mirror. Only now it thrums through the entire town, rattling window panes and sending dogs howling into the desert. The left shoes left behind last time glow faintly where they sit on church steps, arranged in a pattern too precise to be chance, a constellation pointing upward. At midnight, the sleepwalking begins. This time, the parents are ready. They've chained their children to beds, locked doors with iron keys, whispered prayers over sleeping forms. None of it matters. The chains fall away like cobwebs. The locks click open on their own. The children rise with their eyes wide and black, their small hands pressed against windows that fog with their breath no matter how hot the night. Vera watches from the church tower as they converge on the square. They move as one organism, their bare feet leaving perfect prints in the dust, left foot always slightly deeper than the right, as they begin to climb. The air shimmers above them, warping like heat haze, but Vera knows better now. It's not the sky they're ascending into. It's the reflection. She sees it clearly when little Matteo, the priest's namesake, pauses halfway up the invisible staircase and turns his face toward her. His mouth moves, forming words she feels more than hears. You have to see to believe. Then he reaches down through the surface of nothing and pulls. The world inverts. Suddenly, Vera isn't watching from above. She's there, her hand clasped in Matteo's, her bare foot resting on something solid but unseen. The steps are cold beneath her, colder than desert night should allow. Above her, the children climb toward a city that shouldn't exist, a skyline of twisted spires and inverted ziggurats, its geometry making her stomach lurch. It's the city from Daniel's sketches, the city in the mirror. A hand grabs her shoulder. Father Matteo, wild-eyed, his lips moving soundlessly as he points downward. Vera looks and wishes she hadn't. Below them isn't Soledad. It's another sky. And in that sky, something vast and dark uncurls like smoke, turning countless eyes upward toward the climbing children, toward her. The horror here isn't in the climb, it's in the realization. The invisible staircase is just that, a bridge between reflections, a cosmic oversight humanity was never meant to notice. The children's synchronized movements suggest they're not being taken, but returning, drawn by something in their blood or bones that calls the mirror city home. Vera's inversion is the masterstroke. One moment she's observer, the next, participant, her journalist's objectivity shattered along with the laws of physics. The two skies reveal the terrible truth. Soledad exists in a fold, a place where dimensions press too close. And worst of all, the thing in the lower sky isn't reaching for them. It's watching them ascend to something else. A year later, the desert has swallowed the truth whole. Soledad looks no different under the brutal New Mexico sun. Same whitewashed buildings, same dust-choked streets. The new priest, young, skeptical, already sweating through his collar, laughs when asked about missing children. The bakery sells pan de muerto shaped like angels now, not boys. Only the very old still glance upward sometimes, their pupils shrinking as they track something unseen across the azure sky. Vera's article never ran. Her editor spiked it after the Alamogordo research station mysteriously burned down, taking all its weather balloon data with it. The official report lists her notes as the product of heat stroke and local folklore. She keeps the only copy in a shoebox under her bed, along with a single child's huarache that still hums when the moon is full. On the outskirts of town, a new highway cuts through the desert. The construction crew finds the mirror first, noticed only when a bulldozer blade scrapes away centuries of dirt to reveal glass so black it drinks the sunlight. The foreman radios it in. The crew breaks for lunch. When they return, the mirror is gone. Only one worker claims to have seen it. A temp named Daniel with sun-bleached hair and a habit of staring too long at the horizon. He'd smiled when asked about it, tapping his left temple. Some things, he'd said, only show themselves to those meant to see. His time card shows he never clocked in that day. That night, the church bell tolls once without being touched. In a trailer park outside Alamogordo, a sleepwalking child rises from bed and presses her palm to the window. The glass frosts under her touch, despite the August heat. When her mother shakes her awake, the girl blinks slowly and says, "The boy in the sky says it's almost time." Under her pillow, a single page from Vera's unpublished article, the date circled in red, November 1st. Why the cycle works. The horror here is in the erasure, not just of truth, but of the very mechanisms that could expose it. The mirror moves, records vanish, people become ghosts in their own stories. The temporary worker named Daniel winks at us from the edge of the frame, both confirmation and warning. The phenomenon isn't contained to Soledad anymore. The child's prophecy, almost time, suggests the 58-year cycle might be accelerating, or worse, that the mirror is learning, adapting, finding new ways to harvest what it needs. Vera's shoebox archive becomes a time bomb, the Huaraches hum a countdown. And that final date? It's not a warning, it's an invitation. A weather balloon drifting over the desert at exactly 12,000 feet, its camera capturing one perfect frame before static consumes the feed. The frame shows a boy's face pressed against the other side of the lens. He's smiling. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next one. Bye for now.